Bonjour à tous.
We'll begin by taking refuge, developing enlightened mind, and reciting the prayer to Manjushri.
Daji Jinzo Jibe Zanam Je Dola Be Sanje Drupara Jo Sanje Jodan Zoji Jonam La Janjo Bardo Dani Jabzo Jinzo Jibe Zanam Je Dola Benjir Sanje Drupara Jo Sanje Jodan Zoji Jonam La Janjo Bardo Jabzo Je Daji Jinzo Jibe Benjir Sanje Drupara Jo Zemjan Damje Dewa Dan Deve Jo Dambara Jurje Dunga Dan Dunga Je Judam Devara Jurje Dunga Mebe Dewa Damba Dam Indre Vara Juj Nyerin Jadan Dan Deve Don Chambola Nebara Jurje Barden Zave Lama Rinpoché Daji Chivur Pime Denchula Kadrin Chambu Gone Jezond Gozon Doji Drubzar Dozo Jamden de Jambe Yang La Jaze Lo Ganje Lo Dine Dinde Nind Namda La Zeve Jinye Dungun Zijin Zichirin Nijin Duk Le Bam Zeng Kanda Sibe Tsanar Mari Mundun Dung Je Zive Dozo Kunla Buji Tatsi Yang La Drujo Yang Denzo Dro Dai Che Dro Nyam Nilon Legi Chadro Drzeji Marik Menza Dunga Nyugo Chinye Jose Lendina Dene Daijin Sachu Darze Yenden Lutsu Jarze Do Chuda Chudan Chunyi Jended Munsara Jambe Yang La Dun Zeden Jeje Jenra Bezej Dal Dimo Membarab Sen Kadan Tenchu Chunglung Topai Lodre Bobe Nawata Do.
Now we'll continue with our study of the Abhidharmakosha, this treatise, which was composed by Vasubandhu in the 4th century. During our last study session, last May, we continued with our study of the 2nd chapter, which is entitled The Presentation of the Governing Faculties. So concerning this chapter, we first looked at what the term governing faculty means. According to the Vaibhashika, a governing faculty is what exercises a power over something. It is what stewards something. So now we'll do a short recap of what we covered thus far in the 2nd chapter concerning these governing faculties. After having seen what a governing faculty is, We saw that this text, the Abhidharmakosha, presents 22 particular governing faculties. We identified each of these, and we saw why there are 22 particular governing faculties listed in this treatise. So for review, when we talk about the 22 governing faculties, what are we talking about? These 22 governing faculties include, to start, the 6 sensory faculties. This is in fact the 5 sensory faculties and mental faculty. Those are the first 6. Then we saw that in relation to the governing faculty of body, we can extract 2 other governing faculties, a masculine and feminine governing faculty. Then comes the governing faculty of life force. Then there are the governing faculties of the 5 sensations, pleasant physical sensation and unpleasant physical sensation, mental unpleasant and pleasant sensation, and neutral sensation. That covers the 5 sensations. So that brings us to 14. Next, we saw that there is a group of 5 governing faculties, which is called the group whose first is confidence. In this group of 5, the first is, of course, confidence or trust. Next comes enthusiastic effort, then remembrance, then discernment, and lastly, meditative absorption. This brings us to 19 governing faculties. There are 3 more. The last 3 governing faculties are dissociated from factors for descent. They refer to the 3 paths that are dissociated from factors for descent. The first is knowledge of all that has not been known. This corresponds to the path of seeing. The second is the faculty knowledge of all. This corresponds to the path of familiarization. And the third is acquired omniscience, which corresponds to the path of no more learning. And thus we have this list of 22 governing faculties, which is particularly presented in the Abhidharmakosha. We saw as well that there is an incalculable number of governing faculties, but these 22 particular faculties were presented in this treatise because they govern something very important for people to know, for a person who wishes to become free from suffering and the origin of suffering, and to obtain liberation or the cessation of all suffering. These 22 faculties are important for someone who wishes this because, in fact, what they govern is samsara and nirvana. So that was a first part of this first main section of this chapter, and then came more detailed explanations, there was an analysis of the 22 governing faculties by way of various classifications. We saw which faculties are associated with factors for descent and which are dissociated from factors for descent. We saw which are the result of karmic ripening and which are not the result of karmic ripening. Next, we saw which are cause of karmic ripening and which are not cause of karmic ripening. We saw which are virtuous, which are non-virtuous, and which are undefined. Next, we analyzed the 22 governing faculties in terms of realm or domain, in other words, which are present in the sense-pleasure realm, which are present in the form realm, and which are present in the formless realm. Next, we saw which of these faculties are abandoned by the path of seeing, which are abandoned by the path of familiarization, and which are not to be abandoned. This is a bit of a review to get us back into the feel of things. Next, we studied the mode of acquisition of the governing faculties as well as the way that they cease. We saw which faculties are obtained at the moment of birth in each of the three realms, and depending according to each of the different modes of birth which are possible. We also saw which cease at the moment of death and the way that they cease at the moment of death in each of the three realms. Following this, we started looking at a point that we did not completely conclude, which presents which faculties are necessary for obtaining each of the 4 types of fruits that can be obtained on the paths that are dissociated from factors for descent. The presentation of this point was, we didn't finish it. There's a little bit left. So before we jump into this last bit, we will talk about this point a little bit. Before jumping into the point itself, there was a long presentation concerning the 4 fruits of the noble ones, of noble beings. You may recall that this is the first time since we've started studying the Abhidharmakosha that we saw a presentation of the 4 fruits of noble beings. Somebody asked a question, which apparently we can't satisfy, but in any case there is an outline for what was covered last time. So this presentation of the 4 fruits of the noble ones, it doesn't occur at this point in the text in relation to the outline of the text, but in order to help us understand this aspect of the governing faculties necessary to obtain each of the 4 fruits, Khelzang Puntso gave us an overview of the 4 fruits and what they refer to. So for review, the 4 fruits of noble beings are the following: a stream enterer, a once returner, a non-returner, and the state of arhathood. So the first is stream enterer. The second is a once returner. The third is a non-returner. And the fourth is the state of arhathood. So we won't go over the whole presentation, that would be too long. You have access to the audios from the previous presentations that were done last May, and you'll find all of the details there. In this introductory presentation, we also talked more about the two intermediate fruits, the once returner and non-returner, that each of these can be one of two types. There are two types possible. They can be either progressive or bounding. That was part of the long introductory presentation. Then we started the point which is called how many faculties to obtain the fruits. This section is divided into 3 subsections. The first subsection is how many faculties to obtain the first and the last fruit. The second subpart is how many faculties for obtaining the 2 middle fruits. And the third part is the refutation of a debate, and that is the section that we didn't cover last time. So in the outline that you have, you can find this point concerning the first point, how many faculties to obtain the first and last fruits. As a reminder, what was said is that in order to obtain the first and the last fruits, first of all, what are we talking about? We're talking about a stream enterer and the state of arhathood. We saw in stanza 16, third line, 2 of the last fruits are obtained based on 9 faculties. There were explanations that go along with the root text. We won't go into that here. Two of the final fruits are obtained based on 9 faculties. That's the first subpart. Then, second subpart, how many faculties to obtain the 2 middle fruits, the 2 intermediate fruits, the once returner and the non-returner. The fourth line of stanza 16 says, and the 2 others based on 7, 8, or 9 faculties. Once again, we won't go into the details here because, well, 1, that would be a lot of information, 2, wouldn't necessarily be more clear. Jumping back into our study of chapter 2, where we are right now, it's a little complicated because we're at the very end of the first section on the 22 governing faculties. If you haven't reviewed at all, or if you're just starting your study of the Abhidharmakosha, this may be a little bit painful. It's normal, it's natural. Even if you've reviewed, it may be a bit rough. But we're trying to make an effort so that it's as seamless as possible. So we will pick up with this third subsection, which is entitled Refutation of a Debate. So, just for a little encouragement, we will soon have concluded the first section of the chapter, covering the 22 governing faculties, and then we'll jump into the second part, which is a new section, and it's a little easier to approach. So, picking up where we left off, refutation of a debate, which corresponds to what we find in the first two lines of stanza 17. The root text says, "It is said that in certain cases the state of arhathood can be obtained based on 11 faculties." So that's the point where there is a debate. There's a debate about this. As you may recall from this recap that we just went over, we saw that the state of arhathood is obtained based on 9 faculties. That's what Vasubandhu, the author of this text, just explained. In this point, it's explained that in certain cases, the state of arhathood can be obtained based on 11 faculties. So what's going on here? What's the story with this debate? In one of the 7 great treatises of the Abhidharma, a text which is called the Yeshila Jukpa, Entry to Primordial Knowledge, it is said that the state of arhathood is obtained based on 11 faculties. So what's said in this Kashmiri treaty doesn't contradict what Vasubandhu says here when he says that the state of arhathood is obtained based on 9 faculties. So why is there no contradiction? Because in the Kashmiri Treaty, Entry to Primordial Knowledge, there is an explanation of a series of obtaining and decline concerning the state of arhathood. The state of arhathood is obtained for the first time let's do this again. So there's an explanation of a series of obtaining and decline, and at the end of this process, one will have obtained the state of arhathood based on 11 faculties. So to begin with, the state of arhathood is obtained for the first time based on neutral sensation. Then there is an alteration of the state of arhathood, and following this, based on the faculty of well-being, the state of arhathood is restored. Following this, there will be a second decline concerning the state of arhathood, and the state of arhathood will be restored once again, but this time based on pleasant mental sensation. In this case, 3 sensations have come into play. The first obtaining concerned neutral sensation. The second obtaining concerned the sensation of well-being, and the third obtaining concerned the pleasant mental sensation. Thus, we find these 3 sensations: neutral sensation, sensation of well-being, and pleasant mental sensation. Here, in the context of the Abhidharmakosha, Vasubandhu, in his list of 9 faculties that allow for obtaining the state of arhathood, he only mentions 1 sensation. as a reminder, what was said is that the state of arhathood can be obtained based on 9 faculties, including 1 sensation, and this sensation can be either neutral sensation or pleasant mental sensation or sensation of well-being. According to Vasubandhu, this explanation is not incompatible with what is said in the Yeshilajukpa, because the 9 faculties that Vasubandhu explains are obtained together, whereas the 2 other sensations mentioned by the Kashmirians come into play later on during these restoration moments of the state of arhathood. So the 9 governing faculties are obtained together, and then concerning these 2 declines and restorations, we find 2 further sensations. That brings us to 11 governing faculties to attain the state of arhathood. So as we can see, there is no contradiction. This concludes the point that presents how many faculties to obtain the fruits. So before continuing with the next point, the mode of possession of governing faculties, we will come back to the story of Badri. I'm not sure if this rings a bell for anybody. I'll share the main points of Badri's story that Khelzang Puntso shared with us at a certain point in the presentation. At a certain point, it was tricky, so he decided to tell us a story to sort of help us relax. So why are we bringing it up now? Because he came back to this story later on, and we chose to place it here because it's connected to the faculties necessary for obtaining fruits. So what was presented last time concerns the story of Badri, who was a very beautiful woman who had been chosen to marry Mahakashyapa, who was the son of a king. But neither Badri nor Mahakashyapa wished to be married nor to reign. Thus, after the king's death, instead of succeeding the king, following up on the king's rule, they gave all of their possessions away to the needy, and each went off on their own. The name Mahakashyapa may ring a bell. Before passing into parinirvana, the Buddha designated Mahakashyapa as his regent, the first successor of the Buddha to caretake his teaching. Mahakashyapa was an arhat at that time. So coming back to Badri, for her part, she later met the Buddha's stepmother or mother-in-law, remains to be clarified. She was a fully ordained nun. Badri took vows and herself obtained the state of arhathood. The key point in terms of this story is that though she was an arhat, she had not obtained miraculous powers. This was necessary, was part of the story because she encountered certain difficulties in the course of her experiences and was not able to remove herself from them using miraculous powers. Later on, the Buddha's stepmother gave her instructions in order to acquire miraculous powers, including the ability to fly. Thus, even if we obtain this state of arhathood, as Badri did, we don't necessarily obtain prodigious or miraculous powers. And so then what Khelzang Puntso explained after is that there are two types of arhats. There are arhats that are that lack miraculous powers, who have consecrated themselves solely to discernment and therefore have dissipated only the veil of afflictive obscurations. Then there's another type of arhats who are endowed with miraculous powers and who have cultivated both discernment and the meditative absorptions. Due to this, they have dissipated the veil of afflictive obscurations and also the veil of meditative absorption. What does the veil of meditative absorption refer to? This concerns the acquisition of the various meditative absorptions. There are obscurations that act as obstacles to obtaining each meditative absorption. It's a certain type of veil, and we refer to these as the veils of meditative absorption. In the beginning of the story, Badri was in the first category. She obtained the state of arhathood solely through consecrating herself to discernment and by dissipating the veil of afflictive obscurations. Therefore, she did not possess any miraculous powers. Why? Because she had not eliminated the veil of meditative absorption. Whereas other arhats, such as Madhyayana, were known for their great miraculous capacity or powers and had dissipated both veils, the veil of afflictive obscurations and the veil of meditative absorption. So that's more or less what was explained last time. And so Khelzang Puntso came back to this later on to clarify why Badri had attained the state of arhathood without developing miraculous powers. Here there's already a bit of information, but he wanted to clarify. Prior to the first meditative absorption, we find the preparatory stage for the first meditative absorption. This preparatory stage precedes obtaining the first meditative absorption itself. And this preparatory stage can take two directions. The first direction is focused on two aspects. So the first option is focused on two aspects. First aspect, the qualities of the higher stage or higher level that we wish to obtain. The second aspect is the flaws of the level where we currently are and that we wish to abandon. So that's the first direction or option that this preparatory stage can go in. And the second possibility concerning this preparatory stage is focus on the Four Noble Truths. So some individuals will meditate on these two aspects, and others will meditate on the Four Noble Truths. Khelzang Puntso explained this to a certain degree, but he wanted to come back to it. So those there are those in the first group who wish to attain the happiness of the higher levels and be free from their own level. And then the second category is the category to which Badri belonged. She wasn't interested in going to a higher level. She saw the suffering nature of the three realms of samsara. Therefore, she did not engage in meditation on the two aspects. She contemplated, rather, the Four Noble Truths. So that's what Badri did at the beginning of the story. Concerning this preparatory stage for the first meditative absorption, it's called Michokpa Mepa in Tibetan, which means the meditative absorption for which nothing is impossible. Based on this preparatory stage of the first meditative absorption, when we undertake the path of the Four Noble Truths, it is possible to eliminate all afflictive obscurations, all that is to be abandoned in relation to the three realms, based on this preparatory stage. Thus, this preparatory stage of the first meditative absorption has power or potential. Based on this, we are capable of eliminating all that is to be abandoned in relation to the three realms of samsara. So, coming back to Badri, she undertook the path of the Four Noble Truths. She practiced, she attained the path of seeing, then that of familiarization, and she continued to practice in this way until she obtained the state of arhathood. She eliminated all of the veils of afflictive obscurations. The first type of veil that we looked at. Despite this, Badri did not attain the first meditative absorption in and of itself. And this is why, though she abandoned all of the veils of afflictive obscurations, she did not eliminate the veils relative to meditative absorption. If we don't eliminate these veils, then we won't obtain the meditative absorptions. And if we don't obtain the meditative absorptions, then we won't be able to accomplish miraculous abilities. So these are two different things. If we simply wish to obtain miracle powers, it is not necessary to obtain the state of arhathood. If we wish to obtain the state of arhathood, it is not necessary to obtain miracle powers. Nevertheless, if we wish to obtain both, it's necessary to eliminate both veils, the veil of afflictive obscurations and the veil of meditative absorptions. So that's what Khelzang Puntso wanted to clarify concerning these various points. So this concludes this rather dense part titled How Many Faculties to Obtain the Fruits. Okay, so now we can continue with the next part. This concerns the point 1124, the mode of possession of governing faculties. This begins in stanza 17, lines 3 and 4. Okay. So here we'll look at the mode of possession of governing faculties. We'll see if we obtain such a certain faculty, we'll see that 3 other faculties will come with it. Things like this. And we'll also see how many faculties we can possess at one time. So this point, the mode of possession of governing faculties, includes 3 subsections. The first is certain possession, the second, minimum possession, and the third, maximum possession. So we'll begin with certain possession, which includes 7 parts. You can see them on the outline. Each of these concerns certain possession. First subsection, certain possession of 3. Next, certain possession of 4. And continuing on, certain possession of 5, certain possession of 7, certain possession of 8, certain possession of 11, certain possession of 13. We'll look at each of these cases. Okay, so the commentary will next explain what certain possession is. We begin with certain possession of 3. Stanza 17, lines 3 and 4. Possessing neutral sensation faculty, life force faculty, or mental faculty is necessarily possessing all 3. If we say this another way, one who possesses neutral sensation faculty necessarily possesses 3 faculties: neutral sensation itself, life force faculty, and mental faculty. In the same way, in the other cases, one who possesses life force faculty necessarily possesses 3 faculties: life force faculty itself, neutral sensation, and mental faculty. And likewise, one who possesses mental faculty necessarily possesses 3 faculties: mental faculty itself, neutral sensation, and vital life force faculty. In other words, if one of these 3 is present, all 3 are present. This is the meaning of certain possession of 3 here. And Khelzang Puntso adds that these 3 faculties are present for all beings. The second case is certain possession of 4, Root text, stanza 18, line 1. Possessing the faculties of well-being or of body is necessarily possessing the other 4 faculties. Why the other 4? No, is necessarily possessing 4 faculties. So, one who possesses sensation of well-being necessarily possesses 4 faculties. Sensation of well-being itself, plus the 3 that we just covered in the certain possession of 3. In other words, neutral sensation faculty, life force faculty, and mental faculty. One who possesses the faculty of the sensation of well-being necessarily possesses 4 faculties. Sensation of well-being itself, plus the 3 from the association in 3. Likewise, one who possesses body faculty necessarily possesses 4 faculties. Body faculty itself, plus the 3 found in the association of 3. In other words, body faculty itself, neutral sensation faculty, life force faculty, and mental faculty. It's very systematic. For the moment, it's descriptive. Here, Khelzang Puntso says, consider an example of the being born from the womb. When they connect to their new existence, in the beginning, they possess body faculty. What we can understand from what we just explained is that automatically this being obtains 4 faculties. Not only body faculty, but also the 3 faculties of the certain association 3. In other words, neutral sensation, life force faculty, and mental faculty. So that concerns being born in the womb, from the womb. And there will be time for some questions at the end. So we'll continue with the other certain possessions. This brings us to certain possession of 5. We went over 3 and 4. Now we come to 5. The text says, stanza 18, line 2, possessing one of the 4 sense faculties is necessarily possessing 5 faculties. Meaning, if we possess either eye faculty or ear faculty or nose faculty or tongue faculty, one of these, then we necessarily possess 5 faculties. That's what's stated here. These 5 faculties are one of the 4 sense faculties of the 4 that were just cited, plus body faculty, plus the 3 from association by 3, if we possess one of the 4 sense faculties, then we necessarily possess 5 faculties. The sense faculty itself, body faculty, the 3 of the association by 3, and faculty of neutral sensation. What? Oh, no, sorry. The 3 of the association by 3, which are neutral sensation faculty, life force faculty, and mental faculty. Possessing one of the 4 sense faculties, eye, ear, nose, and tongue, means necessarily possessing 5 faculties. In other words, a person who possesses one of these 4 sense faculties, for sure, possesses 5 faculties. Due to possessing one of these 4 sense faculties. And concerning this certain possession of 5, we find further information in the next line of stanza 18. The same is true for pleasant mental sensation. Meaning that one who possesses pleasant mental sensation necessarily possesses 5 faculties. In this case, it will be slightly different. This will be pleasant mental sensation itself, then the 3 governing faculties of the association by 3, mental faculty, neutral sensation, and life force faculty. And the 5th faculty here will be the sensation of well-being. And there's a little clarification to be made here. We saw that the sensation of well-being includes 2 types of sensations. Pleasant physical sensation and the pleasant mental sensation of the 3rd meditative absorption. In this case, that of certain possession of 5, which includes the sensation of bien-être, of well-being, it refers to pleasant mental sensation of the 3rd meditative absorption. And then Khelzang told us here that it would be clarified later on. We didn't necessarily find this clarification, but we can also say that it's fairly clear with what's here. Perhaps, apparently there are some details given in chapter 3. So there's another case here, but there's a story at the end, so it's worth it. Next is certain possession of 7. Stanza 18, end of line 3 and line 4. Possessing unpleasant physical sensation is necessarily possessing 7 faculties. Possessing unpleasant physical sensation is necessarily possessing 7 faculties. Which ones? Unpleasant physical sensation itself, body faculty, life force faculty, mental faculty, neutral sensation, pleasant mental sensation, and sensation of well-being. Again, unpleasant physical sensation itself, body faculty, life force faculty, mental faculty, neutral sensation, pleasant mental sensation, and sensation of well-being. Among these 7, we find the sensation of well-being. In this case, it includes both aspects of the sensation of well-being, pleasant physical sensation and the pleasant mental sensation of the 3rd meditative absorption. An example to illustrate this is that of an arhat in the sense pleasure realm. In the sense pleasure or desire realm, an arhat who possesses unpleasant physical sensation. They possess this unpleasant physical sensation, but they don't possess unpleasant mental sensation. Indeed, in this list of 7, we do not find unpleasant mental sensation. In general, Khelzang Puntso says, beings who possess unpleasant physical sensation also possess unpleasant mental sensation. I think that's true for all of us. But there is an exception, the arhat of the sense pleasure realm. This being possesses unpleasant physical sensation but does not possess unpleasant mental sensation. And Khelzang Puntso clarifies that here this concerns an arhat who is not dead. And next comes a little story to conclude this list, and in relation to this certain possession of 7. Khelzang Puntso explained that Shama Rinpoché did an interview in Virginia, and the interviewer asked him to talk about meditation. Shamarpa replied, if someone wants happiness, good health, and a strong mind, then they need to practice meditation every day. And he said that he himself meditated at least 15 minutes a day and also did some yoga exercises. The interviewer asked him, "What's the benefit of meditation?" And Shamarpa replied, "With meditation, we never experience suffering or unhappiness." And so the interviewer asked, "You never feel suffering?" Shamarpa replied, "No, never." And the interviewer asked, "But you don't have pain in your body?" Shamarpa replied, "Sometimes when I'm sick, but I don't experience any suffering in terms of the mind." The interviewer asked, "How is it possible that you don't feel any suffering despite feeling pain in your body?" Shamarpa Rinpoché explained, "These are two different things. What I'm talking about is mind. In terms of mind, I feel no suffering, even though in terms of the body there is pain. These are two different things. The reason for physical pain is that I'm getting old and my body has limits. Nevertheless, my mind has no limits. Even if we regularly train our bodies, the bodies will have limits. That's the nature of it. Getting old produces numerous unpleasant sensations in terms of the body, but I never feel suffering in terms of the mind." That concludes the story, and Khelzang Puntso added that the same thing goes for the arhats. The functioning is the same. There is unpleasant physical sensation, but not unpleasant mental sensation. Okay, so we'll try to answer some of your questions towards the end. We'll take a short meditative break now. We'll continue with certain possession of 8. This concerns the last line of stanza 18 and the first line of stanza 19. Possessing feminine faculty, etc., is necessarily possessing 8 faculties. The stanzas appear to be numbered slightly differently in the English version. I don't know why. I have to check. So what does this etc. refer to? This means that possessing feminine faculty is necessarily possessing 8 faculties. Possessing masculine faculty is necessarily possessing 8 faculties. And possessing one faculty of the group of 5, whose first is confidence, is necessarily possessing 8 faculties. Possessing feminine faculty is necessarily possessing 8 faculties, which are these: feminine faculty itself, and the 7 faculties that we just covered in the previous point, the 4 sensations. In other words, the 5 sensations accepting unpleasant mental sensation. So the 8 faculties that we possess when we possess feminine faculty are feminine faculty itself and the 7 faculties that we just went over. In other words, the 4 sensations, meaning the 5 sensations less unpleasant mental sensation, so the 4 remaining ones, plus body faculty, mental faculty, and life force faculty. Possessing feminine faculty is necessarily possessing 8 faculties. Feminine faculty itself, the 4 sensations, body faculty, mental faculty, and life force faculty. The same goes for possession of masculine faculty. And then we saw that at the end of this line we find etc. And this etc. includes masculine faculty, which we just went over. It's the same list as for feminine faculty. And then it's also including something a little bit different. The possessing one of the group of 5 whose first is confidence. So, for someone who possesses one of the 5 of the group of 5 whose first is confidence, also possesses 8, but in this case they possess the group of 5 faculties as a whole: confidence, remembrance, discernment, meditative absorption, and enthusiastic effort, plus the 3 faculties of the association by 3: neutral sensation, life force faculty, and mental faculty. This point explained the different cases in which there is certain possession of 8 faculties.
Ensuite, on va passer au dernier point. L'avant-dernier point de,
Yeah. We'll come to the second to the last point concerning certain possession. The sixth subpart, certain possession of 11. This concerns the first 2 lines of stanza 19. Possessing the faculty, knowledge of all, or acquired omniscience is necessarily possessing 11 faculties.
Et donc, quelles sont ces 11 facultés? Eh bien, c'est 3 sensations.
Okay, so what are these 11? First, 3 sensations. In other words, the 5 sensations less unpleasant mental sensation and unpleasant physical sensation. It's a way of not naming them, but we can name them. So if we take out unpleasant mental sensation and unpleasant physical sensation, we can see that it's the 5 sensations minus the 2 unpleasant sensations. So what's left? The 2 pleasant sensations and neutral sensation. So if we possess the faculty knowledge of all or acquired omniscience, we have 11 faculties. In other words, these 3 that we just covered, plus a life force faculty, mental faculty, the group of 5, whose first is confidence, and the faculty knowledge of all itself, or the faculty acquired omniscience itself. So, 3 sensations, life force faculty, mental faculty, group of 5 whose first is confidence, plus knowledge of all itself, or acquired omniscience itself. So we've got 10 minutes left. We have 2 choices. Either we leave time for questions or we conclude this section on certain possession. So maybe we'll do that and then tomorrow we can start with a new point. The last subsection concerning certain possession is certain possession of 13. This corresponds to lines 3 and 4 of stanza 19. Possessing the faculty which allows for knowing all that has not been known is necessarily possessing 13 faculties. I gotta put this, I gotta update this. So one who possesses the faculty that allows for knowing all that has not yet been known necessarily possesses 13 faculties. What are they? Mental faculty, life force faculty, body faculty, the 4 sensations, in this case 5 minus the unpleasant mental sensation, then the group of 5 whose first is confidence, and lastly this faculty itself that allows for knowing all that has not yet been known.
possédée par celui qui
So the 13 faculties that are possessed by someone who possesses this faculty, who that allows for knowing all that has not yet been known, are, let's list them again: mental faculty, vital life force faculty, body faculty, the four sensations, in other words, 5 sensations minus unpleasant mental sensation, the group of 5, whose first is confidence, and the faculty that allows for knowing all that has not yet been known itself.
les questions, on verra après. Désolé. Et après, ça conclut la présentation des différentes associations.
This concludes the presentation of the different certain associations, and then Khelzang Puntso shared a little note about certain association.
C'est assez évident en fait quand on étudie Kalimpong.
It's
Prenons par exemple la première possession certaine, celle par 3.
so concerning, we can take for example the first, certain association by 3. It means that someone who possesses one of these 3 faculties necessarily possesses all 3. And that is a certainty. And this goes for all beings, whether they are beings of the sense pleasure realm, form realm, or formless realm. A being who possesses one of these 3 faculties necessarily possesses all 3 of these faculties together. The opposite is also true. If we do not possess one of the faculties of the association by 3, then for certain we will not possess all 3. If there is no life force faculty, then there's also no mental faculty and no neutral sensation. If there's no mental faculty, there's no life force faculty and no neutral sensation. If there's no neutral sensation, there's also no life force faculty and no mental faculty. So this concludes the point on certain possession, and we have 5 minutes left for questions. I have a question about what was said last time concerning these 3 faculties that go together. It seems I noted that in the form and formless realm, there's only life force faculty, but not the others. But in the text, it didn't seem explicit that the others also appeared at birth. Let's have Sylvestre answer the question. So what you're referring to is how many appear at the moment of birth and how many disappear at the moment of death. That's the point that you seem to be referring to. Concerning birth in the formless realm, these 3 appear. I don't think it could have been said differently, because when one is present, the other 2 are necessarily present. The first moment when a being takes birth in the formless realm, at this moment, if life force faculty is present, necessarily neutral sensation and mental faculty will also be present. Yeah, that's what I understand today. The other question concerns what was said last year about the 13 faculties. Should we also understand that if we don't have body faculty, we can't obtain the faculty that allows for knowing all that has not yet been known? What does this mean about the formless realm and attaining the path of seeing? So the question is, does the rule that applies to the certain association by 3 also apply to the others? For example, if we take the example that you just cited, in the formless realm there can be noble beings who will possess these 3 immaculate faculties. I think both of these questions deserve delving into more deeply. I have a few ideas, but none are totally clear. So I think the best thing to do would be maybe for us to discuss it and look into it further, and then give you a more complete answer tomorrow. That's our time. Sanamdi tamche zekbani tonye pedranam pamchele kekana chibala chimpaye size sole chowa chowa sho.
Et à
Very much. See you tomorrow.